Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bear Insider, Ultimate Insider. I'm Mike Pawlawski. This week, it is kind of a free-for-all on the podcast. Obviously, there's been a ton going on in the Cal football program. This week, the biggest news, of course, is Fernando Mendoza entering the transfer portal. We'll talk about that in just a second. I've got my thoughts on it for you. And then we also talked to Coach Wilcox coming up here. But a bowl game coming up, transfer portal open, signing day. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on right now in Cal football. We're going to take a look at all of it. Got some new coaches on board as well. First and foremost, let's talk about Fernando taking off. Obviously, it's no surprise, and I didn't hold it back. I liked Fernando as a quarterback. Really liked him as a person. Got a good chance to work with him in terms of improving his mental skills, the way he thought about the position at quarterback, and all of that. And I think all of us fell in love with Fernando with what he brought to the game as a Cal guy and his passion for it. The way he just seemed to be kind of fully involved in the game. This day and age of college football is strange. It's the NC2A was a monopoly forever. Players couldn't do anything. The institutions and organizations, schools, the NC2A especially, made a ton of money off of the revenue sports, basketball, football, etc. And for years and years and years, they had a monopoly where the athletes couldn't take any of that. They couldn't have any cut of that share, even though they were the product that was generating the revenue. So when finally it got ruled that it was a monopoly, that it had to be broken up that way, that the athletes had to be allowed to at least monetize their name, image, and likeness, they created this free-for-all. It was a vacuum, and everybody rushed into it. And so it's created this really, really weird world of just constant free agency for college athletes in the revenue sports, football, obviously the biggest among those, and the ability for these guys to jump schools from place to place to place when you pair that with the transfer portal as well. And so because the NC2A had restricted players' trade for so long, restricted the right and their ability to earn based on their name, their limiting factor and their limiting ability on what they can do now is very, very small, because anything that the NC2A tries to do now can be seen as a restriction of trade. And so they have not, the genie's out of the bottle, and they haven't figured out how to put that back. I am fully on board with athletes getting paid for what they are earning. If you think about it, as a starter at Cal, as a junior, I was pretty good. My senior year, I was a Pac-10 Offensive Player of the Year. And they'd been doing the same thing back then, the money would have been completely different. So as an athlete, I would have loved to have been able to take part in that. We weren't. Our generation was not. But this generation is, and it's such a huge money, revenue-producing property, I guess you'd call it now, that the players deserve to be able to take part in it. Just recently there was a lawsuit, and the athletes got this ridiculous, tiny little $70 million settlement for all injuries for all athletes over the entire course of the history of the NC2A. That's not even a drop in the bucket in terms of, just think about the injuries that come from football alone, not to mention all the other sports. So for the athletes to be able to take part in it now, I think it's a really, really good thing. That said, the way that it's happening, you have people coming in from outside agents who don't even represent players, going out and brokering deals and then trying to present them to players. You have guys who are training players, their coaches, their private coaches, going out and trying to create deals and getting in their heads and finding a way to get a cut off of that. And all these guys are trying to find a way to get a cut off the athletes. And so it becomes this crazy world of having to deal with agents and representatives and people who don't even represent athletes who are trying to get a piece of it. Through contacts or, buying agents. I don't know what you'd call them. But I've had people approach me asking me if I can get them in touch with players because schools have offers. And quite honestly, it feels very dirty right now, the way it's going on. And so that's what it is. I'm not saying, I'm not putting any of that on Fernando. I'm just telling you about kind of the landscape that we're in, right? Anytime you have a breakup, there's always blame to go around on both sides. And I think when you're in the heat of it and when you're involved in the process, you often only see your side. And so I think, as we move out from this, that we will be able to see more. We'll be able to see the horizon more clearly looking back after a little once we have a little bit of room on this. And so I deeply care for both sides. I like Fernando a lot. Obviously love Cal. I've got the tattoo on my arm. And so I don't want to find fault with either. The fault lies in communication. That's it. And finding a way to communicate with each other what you want, what you need, what you expect, and then finding a way to make that happen. And so I think that's really the goal going forward. I think the NC2A, now they have the House settlement coming in, and there's this, it's going to be a $20 million per school limit in terms of revenues that you can put back towards players. And so that's a big deal. You're going to have it coming from the school in a profit sharing type of, or revenue sharing type of format. But schools are still going to be allowed to have their outside collectives to be able to bring players in. So the schools that are the haves, that have donors that are willing to donate to their collectives, are still going to get kind of pick of the litter when it comes to good players. That said, I personally think, and here's a solution that you'd have to figure out, and lawyers would have to get on this, but there needs to be something, now that you have money coming from the school itself, where you have enforceable contracts per school, and you can sign players like you would in the NFL to 3-4 year deals, whatever that is. And within those contracts, you'd have to have some type of right to first refusal, or else it would be seen as collusion, where teams could hold the contract number down, and it would violate the antitrust laws. But just have a mechanism that you can secure your team for the next 2, 3, 4 years, which means you're going to have general managers per team. You're going to have to be able to lock down these deals, so have donors that commit for that time. You're going to have to find a way to enforce those contracts, whereas if a team comes in and tampers and tries to take a player who's under contract, if that player transfers, then that team loses X amount of scholarships or X ability to pay, players, whatever it is. You're going to have to put lawyers on that, because it's going to come down to the law. And I'm sure there will be challenge lawsuits. But in order to create any stability in college sports, you're going to need to format something like that to make it happen. Because otherwise, the players will never agree to a union. If they're smart, they would never do that, because then that gives the schools and the institutions all the power in that they can lock players out, and they can threaten players, and they can keep people from earning based on the labor laws. And since it's such a short period of time for the players to commit to a union, would be hugely detrimental to their income potential. So anyway, long involved thing. I'll give you a little trivia here of all the disputes between players and leagues, from the CFL, Arena League, NFL, and football. Essentially, there's been a Cal guy leading the charge, or leading the players in each one of those. So Joe Cap, myself, Scott Fujita, Daryl Ingram, all these guys involved in leading the players while they were there playing in the league. So all that said, it's tricky right now. And so as a result, you're seeing teams losing players. And we obviously love Fernando. He was great. I will always remember 98 yards with my boys. It was a great drive. It was a great interview. But that's at his heart. That's who Fernando is. And so he's a fantastic dude. I'm definitely going to miss him. Loved spending time with him. Loved helping him to grow into the game, into the quarterback he is. So, but remember this. Cal is currently talking to players from other schools, trying to do the same thing to other schools. So while we think, it's, crap that he's leaving or whatever, we are at the same time, because we have to, because that's the market, trying to get players from other schools that they are counting on, that they have fallen in love with, who have cut their teeth at those schools, to get better. So something important to consider. Okay, so there's all of that. We're going to miss Fernando, but, don't point fingers at one side or the other. Communication is obviously the key, and it fell apart for whatever reason. And so we are where we are. That said, we got to find a new quarterback, but we do have a new offensive coordinator. Brian Harsin comes in. Brian was the offensive coordinator at Boise State when Kellen Moore was there. Coached him, did a fantastic job creating lots of explosive offense up there. Boise State during their heyday, during their run, when they were really good. Also took over as a head coach there. Also had fantastic offenses back then. So it was really good there. Obviously coached at other places. Auburn, the most recent place where he was a head coach, and had some difficulties down there. So we'll see. I like Brian. I met him the other day. I love what he did on offense when he's at Boise State. I loved, watching the quarterbacks that he had come through, how explosive their offenses were. It was really good. Nice guy. Met him on the field. And so I'm super interested in watching how the offense evolves under him. Also have a new receivers coach that I know of that I can tell you about. It's been announced as Kyle Cefalo, who was last year the offensive coordinator at Utah State. And his offense averaged 468 yards per game. So that bodes well as well. Both those guys together, obviously love the vertical passing game, love the horizontal passing game, and they'll find ways to get the ball on the perimeter and hopefully establish a running game. The key pickups for coaching are going to have to be on the offensive line. Going to need an O-line coach, hard-nosed, who can recruit, who can get guys in. I know that we were in the running for several really good candidates last year in the NIL deal, and guys decided to go elsewhere. And so we need to recruit those guys as well as find a way, to pay them through NIL, but we need to find a way to get those guys in the program so that we shore up that offensive line. We've got great running backs on staff still. Jaden's still here, and the Jet's still here as well. And we got guys behind them who can also run the football. If you get a great offensive line, a couple great edge guys, and a top-tier signal caller, it cures all your problems. Not all of them, but it cures a lot of your problems in terms of offense. And then the edge guys on defense cure a lot of your problems on defense as well, because those are the difference makers. And it's why they're the top paid guys in the NFL. It's why they're the top paid guys in the portal right now as well. So, Brian, Kyle, welcome to Berkeley. Looking forward to seeing what you do with the offense, and looking forward to see what kind of personnel Cal can bring in this year. So it will be an interesting year. The signing period here is going to be interesting. So anyway, that's it. I talked to Coach Wilcox earlier this week. We talked about all this stuff and the bowl game coming up, UNLV. I'll have a deeper dive on the bowl game coming up here shortly. But right now, let's listen my conversation with Coach Wilcox earlier in the week. Joining me now, head coach Justin Wilcox. And Coach, I have to start off with obviously the biggest news this morning, your quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, going into the portal. Talk about that.
Yeah, nothing really surprises me anymore. It is disappointing, but I'm not surprised by anything anymore in college football. Fernando started, I think it was 18 games for us straight. Came to us from Miami redshirted and then got into action, and we did our best to support him and promote him. Did everything we could possibly do to keep him. Every player's got to make decisions for themselves. This is a very complicated environment that they're in. I have some empathy because there's so many voices that are talking to these guys, and I'm hoping all the counsel's good. I guess some of the we'll see, ultimately, but in the end, again, disappointing. I guess not surprising because this is the world of college football now. So what I do know is we're going to have a really great opportunity for quarterbacks and some other players to join us with great resources behind us. And, we got to find wins in those margins that we've talked about. I mean, we're talking, the difference this season in 10 or 11 wins is a handful of plays. And so we're excited about the guys that are going to be here. We don't have control on who leaves the program anymore, Mike. You have control on who comes into the program.
College football is the ultimate free agency system.
Yeah. I was telling somebody, Mike, you probably appreciate this. If you're a college football fan and you really love that game and the pageantry and the teams, I would encourage you to not look behind the curtain. I would just enjoy the games, cheer for your teams. But if you start looking too deep into the kitchen, you might not want to eat. You might enjoy it less. I think you just enjoy the game for what it is. It is very complicated. There's a lot that's concerning about what's going on. It's still the greatest game on earth, but it's in a very complicated place right now.
It's an interesting dynamic right now. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but even the NFL, you have contracts that last X amount of years, and everybody's bound by them. College football, it's a free agency system year after year after year after year.
Twice a year.
Yeah.
Twice a year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. You got it.
So, yeah, I think it makes it tough. It obviously it rebounded because the NC2A was a monopoly for so long, and so it just rebounded completely the opposite way. But anyway, that's another discussion for another time. Another addition, Coach Harsin coming on as your offensive coordinator. Talk about the decision going into him, and so this is OC number 5, right? So it's off. It was Bo, it was Billy, it was Jake,
I guess
Mike, and then now Coach Harsin. Talk about what he brings that changes the dynamic for offense.
Well, we got to do this much better. We all know that. Now, that's not just on one coach. It's not just on, Mike Blesh is a heck of a coach. He's done a really good job. A year ago, we had the Pac-12's leading rusher. He had as much to do with that as anybody on the coaching staff. This year, there were some more difficult circumstances. It didn't quite go like, we all hoped, and we needed to supplement what we were doing on offense to find that extra touchdown, or first downs. And so I think Mike's a hell of a coach. We needed to do something to supplement what we were doing. And Brian Harson's a proven offensive coach. I mean, he's been an OC for numbers of years, a head coach, been extremely successful. He has a wealth of football knowledge. He is extremely competitive and excited. The recruiting element is, the development of the quarterbacks and the guys he's coached and been around is very impressive. And so, the staff that he and we can attract is going to be very impressive. So I'm very excited about it and eager to get going. He just got here today.
How does that affect the team as you have it, right? You have obviously guys leaving, guys coming in, Isaiah Hunter, another guy. Talk about how that affects the team and what you're doing going into the bowl game.
Not much. I mean, the guy, we're not changing offenses. We got there's coaches on our staff who put together a game plan. Practices look like they've looked this whole season. So he's not calling the plays. He's here to support us moving forward. He's talking to our players, just getting to know them. Recruiting, obviously, we're hiring potentially a couple, more coaches, and so we're working through that. But our coaching staff is still hard at work preparing for the bowl game. We're not implementing a new system during the bowl practices.
Yeah. So my question was more kind of on a psychological level than like a schematic level. I figured there's no way you change out an offense in a week and a half. That's impossible.
The last 2 days of
and the guys that you have there and the team is now, the whole dynamic has changed, right? It's a new mix. You've thrown everybody else into the bowl. How does that affect them?
Team's been great. We've had 2 really high energy practices the last 2 days, and focusing on football. What can you control? Staying calm with, the amount of emotion that runs through college football right now. If you get caught up in that, like you can't think straight. And so focusing on football, let's get better at football. It benefits everybody. I don't care if it's your last game as a senior, if you're going to the NFL, whatever your situation might be, the best thing you can do is go play well. That's the absolute best thing you can do. So we've had 2 great days of practice. And, in terms of, rosters and continuity and all that, guys, like half the team is new every year.
Yeah.
Half the team is new every single year. Like we have to reshape how you view college football. It's just totally different than it was 4 years ago and 15 and 20 years ago.
Got it. So now logistically, who is calling plays? How does that staff work out for this game? What is the what's the framework going into a bowl game?
Yeah, we got people at every position, and we're working. It's a collective effort right now. We got a game plan ready. Coach Gilbert and Coach Safel are working kind of hand in hand on game planning, and it's been great. The practice guys, like if you were at practice, you're not going to notice much of a change at all. So they've done a great job and are total professionals and been working really hard at it. And the players are practicing hard and competing. And today was, like I said, that we've hit yesterday and today some of our top speeds in the last 2 months. Guys are working.
Yeah. And talk to me about now the bowl game, UNLV. Let's talk about your opponent. Let's make this something different.
Yeah. 10 win team. really dynamic quarterback, can run and throw. They got a receiver. He's got 1,000 yards. Really good player. He's blocked 4 punts, which is unheard of. Defensively, player of the year at linebacker and a DB with 5 picks. Coach Odom, they've always had really good defenses. And really good football team. They, play in all 3 phases. Their offense puts you in conflict with, some of the option game. And so, there's a reason they got 10 wins. They're good.
Yeah, they run what they call the go-go offense, right? And so talk about what that means for you as a defense. What do you have to look for? What do you guys have to do?
But they put people in conflict. It's, the option game, the RPO game. Some of the formations are a little bit more unique. They do a good job with it. Again, and then ultimately the players that are handling the ball, catching the ball, the X's and O's are all, everybody in college football has got pretty damn good X's and O's. There's not a lot of just bad coaches. You don't see a lot of that. And then it's about how well do those players, when they get in those positions, execute the play, and then how talented are they? So they do a good job with it, and then the players are talented.
How do you guys match up talent-wise? How do they match up?
I think they're a good team. I think we got some damn good players. I think there's going to be guys on our team that are going to get more opportunities in this game than maybe they did in the regular season. And I think they're going to be in a position to springboard themselves into next year. And I think it's going to be exciting to watch those guys compete.
Yeah, the red shirt thing is out now, right? So guys can compete. They can be part of this thing. Are you planning on using some of the younger talent that were kind of under that red shirt banner?
We are. Absolutely. Yeah. There'd be a number of guys playing, whether it's offense, defense, and then also on special teams.
And how's the offensive line look right now?
Really the same as it looked at the end of the year.
Everybody healthy that was healthy?
Nick Morrow's out. He's not going to be able to play. But, everybody else is out there competing. We were doing fastball and team good on good today, and PJ Session and Siowape and Bastion and Will, they're all out there playing. Fred?
Excellent. Well, good luck this week, Coach, coming up. Talk to people about what it means to earn this bowl game, right? This season's been kind of a little bit of a roller coaster. Talk to me about what it means to have this opportunity for your team schematically, right? The extra practices, getting the young guys ready, but also as a reward for the season.
But winning a bowl game is always one of the goals at the beginning of the season. You want to be in the absolute best bowl game you can. We had some good moments in the season, and we had a really tough stretch there, as we all know, with 5 or 4 really, really difficult losses that the guys rebounded from and found a way to win and get bowl eligible. The difference between 10 and 11 wins and 6 is this much. So that's the hardest margin to make up. And that's why we got to make changes. We have to do a little bit better. We have to score one more time. We have to get one more stop. We got to be better in strength and conditioning. We got to be better in sports med. We got to be better in nutrition. We got to recruit better. We have to have more competition. We got to do all those things to be able to make up those margins, because that's what it takes. And so that's why we're making all these adjustments. And the whole mission is to win, and to win big. And I know we can do it. We were this close to doing it. It's frustrating as hell that we didn't, but it's certainly not hopeless. And now we got to control what we control, which is how we play and prepare and play in the bowl game, and who comes into the program that we can elevate and we can compete, and we get those players and coaches who are going to take us to that next level. And we're not talking about the 4 or 5 plays that are a difference in 10 and 11 wins.
Right. And what does your quarterback depth chart look like going into this game? That one?
EJ and CJ right now, or CJ and EJ, I should say. Right. And both those guys are doing a really good job at practice. And Chandler's working back in, and he should be more full go tomorrow. We'll see kind of how he's doing. He's day to day, but he is out there throwing the ball.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate it, Coach. We'll see you down in Southern California. Look forward to seeing this game.
All right. Thanks.
So that gets you up to speed in terms of what's been going on around Memorial Stadium for the last couple of weeks. Obviously, there's a ton going on. I will do a bowl game specific podcast coming up early next week. I will try to get it out on Monday or Tuesday for you. I'm going to have some player interviews for you as well, talk about the experience and about the bowl game and UNLV. Want to go more in depth once I've watched a bunch of film on them, had an opportunity to talk to their radio crew as well. But that's it for Ultimate Insider for this episode. I appreciate you guys watching as always. I'm Cal to the heart. I got the tattoo. You see, I'm always wearing my Cal gear. So always hoping to see the Bears figure out a way to turn it on, get more wins, right, and bring the program back to glory, which would be fantastic as a guy who was there when Cal was at its peak. Appreciate you guys watching. Always great talking Cal football. For Bear Insider and Ultimate Insider, I'm Mike Pawlawski. As always, go Bears.